She kept his secret for 9 years, until their son looked at him and said, "He wants to hug me." 9 years ago, she walked out of her husband's world with a breaking heart and an unborn child. Money, pride, and the cold disdain of his mother left her with only one choice: to leave. So Elara Monroe, a black woman who once believed love could fix everything, raised Eli alone, working quiet mornings, hiding every trace of the man she once loved. Now fate laughed. The wedding hall shimmered with light and music, a place built for joy, not for ghosts. Across the room stood Adrian Hale, her past and her pain in one perfect suit. Their eyes met, and 9 years of silence cracked in a single heartbeat. Eli tugged her sleeve, whispering, "Mom, that man wants to hug me." The music faded, her breath caught. He didn't know, he couldn't, and yet destiny had brought them back to this moment. What will happen when the truth she's hidden for 9 years finally comes to light? Hit subscribe and see how far a mother will go to protect her son, and the past she swore to bury. The crowd clapped as another toast began. Elara tried to steady her breath. She could feel Adrian's gaze still on her, burning through the noise. Then a woman appeared beside him, tall, elegant, every step rehearsed. Vivian Cole, the new Mrs. Hale. Her diamond ring caught the light like a blade. "Hello," Vivian said, smiling with perfect grace. "You must be an old friend." Elara's throat tightened. "Something like that," she managed. 9 years of silence, and fate seated them face to face again. Vivian's arm slipped through Adrian's as if claiming him. "My husband told me stories from his past," she added, tone sweet but sharp. Adrian looked uneasy. His fingers twitched around his glass. "It's been a long time," he said softly. Eli stared up, curious. "Do you know my mom?" The table fell quiet. Vivian laughed, brittle and bright. "Oh, sweetheart, adults know too many people." Elara forced a smile, though her pulse roared in her ears. Fate wasn't finished with her yet. Adrian's gaze drifted toward the boy again. The same brown shade, the same quiet focus he saw in the mirror each morning. He froze. Eli tilted his head, half hiding behind Elara's dress. "Mom, can I get cake now?" She nodded quickly, eager to escape. Her fingers shook as she reached for a napkin, pretending calm. Across the room, Adrian's hand trembled as he raised his glass. The champagne barely touched his lips. He watched them leave. The woman he once vowed to protect, and the child who looked exactly like him. Vivian leaned close. "What's wrong?" He blinked, voice rough. "Nothing." But it wasn't nothing. That boy's eyes, his eyes, haunted him. For years he had told himself the past was done, the chapter closed. Yet here it stood, breathing, looking up at him with innocence he didn't deserve. Elara guided Eli out toward the garden, her smile forced and shaking. She whispered, "Stay near me, okay?" The laughter inside the hall blurred into distance. For the first time in 9 years, Adrian Hale felt something heavier than guilt, a truth clawing its way back to life. That night, the sea wind rattled the windows of Elara's small apartment above the flower shop. She had just tucked Eli into bed when her phone buzzed. Unknown number, one message. He deserves to know the truth. Attached was an image, a faded ultrasound, initials written in blue ink. A.H. Her breath hitched. Hands trembling, she stared until the edges blurred. That photo had been buried for years, hidden in a box under old clothes. No one should have had it. Her mind raced. Who sent it? How did they know? She closed the curtains, heart pounding, the same fear she'd felt 9 years ago creeping back like cold water. She wanted to delete the message, pretend it never came. But she couldn't. The screen glowed in the dark, a small light she couldn't ignore. In the next room, Eli murmured in his sleep, dreaming of something simple, something safe. Elara sat motionless beside the phone, knowing the past she fought to bury had just found her. 9 years earlier, Elara stood in a mansion too bright for comfort. The air smelled of roses and judgment. Evelyn Hale, dressed in pearls and power, watched her like a hawk. "You're not one of us," Evelyn said, placing a check on the table. "Take this and leave, before you destroy his future." Elara's hand shook, but she didn't touch the paper. "I love your son," she whispered. The older woman's smile was cold. "Love doesn't buy respect, dear, and it certainly doesn't clean a family name." The check gleamed under the chandelier. Elara tore it in half. "I won't take your money." "Then you'll take your silence," Evelyn said. That night, Elara packed what little she owned. The rain fell hard as she walked away from the Hale estate, one hand on her stomach, the other wiping tears she refused to show. In the darkness, she whispered to her unborn child, "It's just us now." Lightning flashed behind her, the last light of a world she'd never returned to, and for years after, the echo of that door closing never left her. Weeks after the message, Elara finally found the courage to open the old hospital file. The paper had yellowed, but the words still hurt. On the birth record, under father, someone had typed a single word: unknown. Her breath caught. She remembered writing his name herself, each letter neat, trembling, full of love. Now it was gone, erased as if he had never existed. She ran her fingers over the print, hoping it would change, but it didn't. It felt like someone had erased her too, her story, her truth, her place in the world. Outside, the rain tapped against the window. She whispered, "Why won't they just let me live?" For years, she had convinced herself silence was protection, that no name meant safety for her child. But in that moment, staring at the empty line, she realized silence had only protected their lies. Elara folded the file, her hands shaking. Somewhere out there, someone wanted this truth buried forever, and someone powerful had made sure it stayed that way. Morning came soft and pale over Willow Harbor. The town smelled of salt and pine, the air colder near the sea. Elara unlocked the small flower shop on Main Street. Phoenix blooms. Peace was the only luxury she could afford. She arranged roses in the window, trimming stems, losing herself in the rhythm. Customers came and went, kind faces who knew nothing about her past. To them, she was just Miss Monroe, quiet, polite, a single mother who always smiled. Eli played behind the counter, humming to himself, his laughter filling the empty spaces in her chest. For the first time in years, life was simple. Yet, sometimes, when the doorbell chimed, she still flinched, waiting for a voice she hoped would never return. At night, when the shop went dark, she'd stand by the window, watching the harbor lights shimmer on the water. The town was her second chance, the calm after a storm. But calm never lasted long for Elara Monroe. One bright morning, Mia, her coworker, burst through the door holding coffee. "Guess who just bought the old bank building across the street?" Elara smiled absently. "Who?" Mia grinned. "Hale and Son Enterprises, real estate division. Big opening next week." The name hit her like a wave. Hale. She turned toward the window. Across the street, workers lifted a shining silver sign. Bold letters spelling out the world she'd escaped. Her hands went cold. The scissors slipped from her grip, clattering onto the counter. Mia frowned. "You okay?" Elara nodded, forcing a smile. "Yeah, just surprised." But inside, panic churned. 9 years she had chosen this town because it was far from his name, far from the shadow of his family. And now, that shadow stood right outside her door. The bell above the shop rang as a customer entered, but Elara barely heard it. She was staring through the glass, watching her past rebuild itself, brick by brick, across the street. That evening, Elara closed the shop late. The street was quiet, the air thick with fog. She turned the key in the door and froze. Across the road, a black car idled, headlights off, engine humming low. Her stomach twisted. She told herself it was nothing. Someone waiting, maybe lost. But then the window rolled down halfway. A man's voice, smooth and cold, drifted through the mist. "Miss Monroe, stop digging into old records. Some things are better forgotten." Her breath caught. The car pulled away before she could speak, disappearing into the fog. Elara's hands trembled as she locked the door again. She looked down the street, but no one was there. That night, she barely slept. Every sound, a passing truck, a creak in the floor, felt like footsteps outside her window. By morning, her fear had hardened into something else: determination. Whoever they were, they still watched her. They still feared the truth she carried. And that meant one thing: the truth was real. The next afternoon, a silver car stopped in front of Phoenix Blooms. Elara was arranging lilies when the door opened and Evelyn Hale stepped inside, wrapped in black silk and control. "You still remember my name?" Evelyn said softly. "Good." Elara froze. The same perfume, the same cold smile. Time hadn't softened her. It had sharpened her edges. Evelyn looked around the tiny shop, unimpressed. "So, this is your life now? Selling flowers?" Elara swallowed hard. "It's honest work." "Honesty doesn't pay much," Evelyn murmured, pulling an envelope from her purse. "Take the money and disappear. Again." Elara didn't move. Evelyn slid the envelope across the counter. "You always make things harder than they need to be." Elara glanced down. A check, large enough to buy a house. The signature at the bottom made her blood run cold. Adrian Hale. Her voice cracked. "He didn't sign this." Evelyn's smile didn't fade. "No one will question it." The scent of lilies filled the silence between them. As the door closed behind her, Elara realized the past wasn't returning. It had never left. That night, Elara sat at her kitchen table, the check still lying torn beside a cold cup of tea. The phone rang. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Miss Monroe?" The voice was low, familiar. Adrian. Her pulse stumbled. "Yes." "It was good to see you again," he said after a pause. "I didn't know you were still in Maine." She gripped the phone tighter. "I didn't expect to see you either." Silence. Then he said softly, "I'm sorry for how things ended. There were things I didn't know back then, things my family." He stopped. A second voice cut through, distant but clear. "Who are you talking to, darling?" "Vivian." Adrian's breath caught. "No one important," he said quickly, and the line went dead. Elara sat frozen, phone pressed to her ear, the words echoing. No one important. She wanted to hate him for saying it, but something in his tone, hesitation, guilt, made her heart ache instead. Outside, the sea wind howled against the windows. For the first time in years, she felt both seen and invisible at once. Days later, an order arrived from Hale & Son Enterprises. 20 arrangements for the city charity gala. The note requested personal delivery by Miss Monroe. Elara hesitated, sensing a trap, but she couldn't refuse. She needed the job. That evening, the ballroom glittered with chandeliers and silk gowns. Elara placed the bouquets quietly, hoping to leave unnoticed. But then Vivian's voice rang through the microphone. "Before we begin tonight's donations," she said sweetly, "we'd like to thank our local florist, Miss Monroe, for these beautiful flowers. Please, come up." Elara froze. Dozens of eyes turned. Vivian smiled, her tone dripping sugar. "You see, Miss Monroe used to be very close to my husband. Isn't that right, dear?" Gasps rippled across the hall. Adrian's face went pale. "Vivian, stop." "Oh, don't be shy," she said, laughing lightly. "We're all adults here." Whispers spread like fire. Ex-wife. The one who left him. Elara's cheeks burned. She forced a faint smile. "Thank you for the opportunity," she said softly, then walked out as the murmurs followed her like knives. By morning, her phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Videos from the gala filled every screen. Captions screamed, "The ex who can't let go." Elara scrolled through comments that cut deeper than truth. "She's pathetic. Trying to get attention. Look at her face when the wife exposes her." She put the phone down, shaking. Tears blurred the edges of the world. Eli ran from his room. "Mom, what's wrong?" She knelt, hugging him tight. "Nothing, sweetheart. Just tired." but inside she was breaking all over again. That night she sat alone by the window, the city lights blurred by rain. Her reflection looked like a stranger. Tired eyes, trembling lips, a heart that had carried too much. The laughter from the gala still echoed in her mind, cruel and polished. Somewhere out there someone had planned this. Every word, every camera flash. And whoever they were, they still weren't done. The next morning, a new email appeared. No name, no subject line, just an address, hiddentruths@protonmail.com. Inside was a short message. Watch this. Attached, a backstage video from the gala. The footage showed Vivian whispering to Evelyn before the event. "Don't worry," Vivian said. "I've arranged for her to be called up. Let's see if he still protects her after this." Evelyn's voice followed, cold and calm. "Make sure the cameras are ready." Elara stared at the screen, her breath catching. Every cruel word, every public humiliation. Planned. Her anger rose, sharp and steady. For 9 years she had lived in fear of that family. Now, for the first time, she held something they didn't. Proof. She downloaded the video and saved it on a hidden drive. Her hands stopped shaking. They thought they had broken her again. But this time, she wasn't the woman who walked away. She was the one who could fight back. 3 nights later, another message arrived from the same address. "If you want to clear your name, meet me." 10 p.m. The old train station. Elara read it again and again, torn between fear and hope. Was it a trap, a setup, or someone who truly wanted to help? She paced the kitchen, glancing toward Eli's bedroom door. He was asleep, his face peaceful in the glow of the nightlight. She whispered, "What should I do?" But no answer came. Only the sound of the waves beyond the window. Finally, she packed her coat and phone, leaving a note on the counter. "Back soon. Love you." The streets were empty as she drove toward the old station at the edge of town. The moon hung low, the air thick with fog. Every instinct told her to turn back, but something stronger pushed her forward. The need for truth. If someone wanted to silence her, they wouldn't have warned her first. Tonight, she would find out who still remembered her story, and why. The old train station was empty, cold air seeping through cracked windows. Elara's footsteps echoed softly as she entered. A man stepped out of the shadows. Tall, weary, with kind but cautious eyes. "My name's Liam Roth," he said. "I used to work for Hale & Son, in legal." Elara tensed. "Why are you helping me?" "Because I know what they did to you," he said. "And to him." He handed her a small USB drive. "Your ex-husband never filed those divorce papers himself. His mother did. She forged his signature, even created fake photos to make him believe you cheated." Elara's voice trembled. "He never knew?" Liam shook his head. "He thought you walked away because you wanted his money. She made sure he'd never see the truth." The ground seemed to tilt beneath her. 9 years of anger, loneliness, shame, all built on lies. Liam looked around nervously. "She'll do anything to keep this buried. Keep that drive safe." Elara clutched it to her chest. "Why are you risking this?" He hesitated. "Because some secrets deserve to be broken." Rain began to fall, cold and sharp. Elara and Liam stepped outside, the parking lot silent except for the hum of a distant engine. A black car appeared at the end of the street, headlights flashing once, twice. Liam's face went pale. "They found me," he whispered. He shoved the USB into her bag. "Go, now." "What about you?" "Don't look back," he said, pushing her toward the alley. She ran, heart pounding, rain soaking through her coat. Behind her came the screech of tires, a shout, then the crack of a gunshot. Elara stumbled, gripping the wall. Another shot echoed, then silence. When she turned, the car was gone. So was Liam. She stood alone under the rain, her breath shaking, her clothes clinging to her skin. The drive in her pocket felt like fire. Whatever truth it carried had just cost someone his life. Elara pressed a trembling hand to her chest and whispered, "I won't waste this." Back home, Elara locked the door and opened her laptop. Her hands shook as she inserted the USB. Dozens of files appeared. Documents, recordings, scans. One audio file was labeled Record J09. She pressed play. Evelyn's voice filled the room, calm and cruel. "Remove his name from the record. I'll handle the paperwork. That woman will not ruin our reputation again." Elara's breath caught. Then another voice followed, Adrian's. "She wouldn't cheat, Mother. I know her." "You're blinded, darling," Evelyn snapped. "Look at these photos." "No," he said. "That's not possible." The recording ended. Elara covered her mouth, tears spilling. For years, she'd hated him for abandoning her. Now she realized he'd been deceived too. All this time he'd lived believing she betrayed him, while she lived believing he chose pride over love. The truth was ugly, but it was finally hers. She stared at the screen through tears. "They destroyed both of us." Morning light spilled through the curtains, soft and gray. Elara hadn't slept. The USB lay on the table beside her, small, silent, heavy with everything she'd lost. For hours, she sat staring at it, torn between fear and resolve. She could keep hiding, or she could finally end this. She opened her laptop, started a new email, and typed slowly. "You deserve to know what really happened 9 years ago." She attached the audio file and hit send before she could change her mind. The message whooshed away, leaving silence behind. Outside, the harbor glimmered under the morning sun, the first warmth she had felt in years. Whatever happened next, she was done living afraid. The truth was out there now, and it carried her name. The next day, her phone buzzed. Unknown number, a single message. "Meet me, Pier 14, 6 p.m. At sunset, she stood by the railing, waves crashing against the wooden posts. Adrian approached slowly, the wind pulling at his coat. He looked older, but his eyes still the same. "I got your message," he said quietly. "And the recording." Elara nodded, unable to speak. "I didn't believe it at first," he continued. "Then I heard her voice, my mother's. She destroyed everything, didn't she?" "She took everything from both of us," Elara whispered. For a moment, neither moved. The sea wind howled between them, carrying away 9 years of silence. He looked at her with regret, with understanding. "And our son?" She met his gaze. "He's yours. He always was." The truth hung between them, fragile and freeing. Adrian exhaled. "I want to meet him." "You will," she said softly, "but it's not safe yet." And as they walked away from the pier, neither noticed the camera hidden in the distance, waiting to turn truth into another weapon. By dawn, the world already knew. Photos from the pier flooded every news site. Married CEO's secret affair. Headlines screamed betrayal, scandal, shame. The images showed Adrian and Elara standing close, her eyes soft, his hand brushing hers. It looked intimate, stolen, wrong. No one cared about context. Within hours, Hale & Son released a statement. Mr. Hale denies any ongoing relationship with Miss Monroe. The meeting was misrepresented. This is a malicious attempt to damage his reputation. Elara read it twice, her vision blurring. He had chosen silence again. Or maybe, this time, fear had chosen for him. Reporters crowded outside the shop. Customers stopped coming. Someone threw a stone at her window with a note. "Stay away from married men." Eli didn't understand why his mother cried behind closed curtains. Across the bay, Adrian watched the news alone, fists clenched. He had tried to protect her the only way he knew, by denying everything. But that denial cut her deeper than any lie ever had. For Elara, love no longer hurt because it was gone. It hurt because it was still alive in a world determined to kill it. 2 days later, another headline flashed across the screen. Former Hale & Son employee found dead in car crash. Suspected suicide. Elara froze. The name beneath it, Liam Roth. Her chest tightened. She whispered, "No." The article was brief. An accident on a deserted road, no witnesses. But she knew. Evelyn had found him. Evelyn was erasing every trace that could lead back to her. Elara's knees gave out. The USB, still hidden in her drawer, suddenly felt like a live wire. Liam had risked his life for the truth. Now he was gone. She sat on the floor, shaking, remembering his last words. Some secrets deserve to be broken. Outside, rain lashed against the window. It sounded like the night she had left the Hale estate years ago. Thunder, loss, and fear all at once. This time, though, she wasn't the frightened girl who ran. She was a mother with something to protect and a reason to fight. But before she could act, the world struck again. The scandal grew. The flower shop suspended her. Too much bad publicity, they said. Her landlord left a letter. Please vacate by the end of the week. Online, strangers called her names. Homewrecker, manipulator, gold digger. Her phone filled with threats she couldn't read anymore. She stopped answering calls. She stopped leaving the house. Eli sat beside her on the couch, watching cartoons with the sound off. He looked up, small voice trembling. "Mom, are we bad people?" Her heart broke. "No, baby, we're just misunderstood." He wrapped his arms around her neck. "Then why does everyone hate you?" Elara couldn't answer. She only held him tighter, her tears silent against his hair. The world outside was cruel and loud. Inside, the silence was worse. That night she stood by the window staring at her reflection. A woman hollowed by truth and fear. For the first time she thought about giving up. Then Eli stirred in his sleep, whispering her name, as if reminding her why she couldn't. She wiped her tears. She would fight, even if it meant doing it alone. The next morning, Elara picked up her phone and scrolled through old contacts. One name stopped her. Nora Price. They hadn't spoken in years. When the call connected, Nora's voice was cautious. "Elara? After all this time?" Elara's throat tightened. "You've seen the news?" "I have," Nora said softly, "and I don't believe a word of it." Tears burned Elara's eyes. "I have proof, files, recordings, but I can't show them alone." Nora's tone changed. Steady, professional. "Then don't. Let me help." "You'd risk your career?" "I'm an investigative journalist," she said. "This is what I do. And this time, let's make sure you're not alone." For the first time in weeks, hope flickered inside Elara's chest. Small, fragile, but real. They agreed to meet the next morning at a small cafe out of town. Elara looked around her dark apartment, cluttered with boxes and silence, and whispered, "Thank you." Some friendships fade. Others return when the world is darkest. Nora brought someone with her, a quiet young man named Leo, sharp eyes behind glasses, fingers always moving across his laptop. "He's the best at finding what others try to erase," Nora said. Leo nodded. "If Liam had backups, I'll find them." They spent hours in Nora's office, surrounded by empty coffee cups and old files. Leo typed fast, tracing deleted emails, hidden folders, encrypted drives. By dusk, the screen lit up with recovered files, bank transfers from Evelyn Hale's private account, contracts with a security firm known for cover-ups, and an audio clip of her threatening Liam weeks before his death. "Got her," Leo whispered. Elara stared at the evidence. Cold, undeniable proof of everything she had lived through. Her hands shook, not from fear this time, but from power. Nora smiled. This could expose them all. Elara nodded slowly. "Then let's do it right." Outside, the city lights began to glow. For the first time in 9 years, she wasn't hiding. She was preparing, and this time she wasn't alone. Days turned into quiet planning. Files were copied, witnesses prepared, evidence locked away. Then one morning, Elara stood before the mirror, scissors in hand. A strand of dark hair fell, then another, until the reflection staring back looked almost new. 9 years ago, she had walked away in silence. This time, she would walk in with truth. She dressed in a black suit, simple but sharp. Her eyes, once soft, now steady. There was no fear left, only clarity. At Nora's office, Adrian waited. He looked at her as if seeing her for the first time. "You're not the woman I remember," he said quietly. She met his gaze. No, that woman didn't know how strong she could be. They turned toward the courthouse together, steps measured, hearts heavy but certain. The world that had once crushed her was about to hear her voice again. Outside, cameras flashed. Inside, the truth waited. The courtroom was crowded, the air tense. Reporters lined the benches, pens ready. Evelyn sat poised, her diamond brooch catching the light. Beside her, Vivian's smile trembled. Elara entered with calm grace, placing the evidence folder before her lawyer. When the judge called her name, she stood tall. Audio filled the room. Evelyn's voice cold and sharp. "Remove his name from the record. That woman will never ruin our reputation again." Whispers erupted. Evelyn's lawyer objected, but the judge silenced him. Then Adrian rose from his seat, his voice firm. "I confirm everything. I was deceived. She forged my signature and destroyed our marriage." Vivian turned pale. "You don't know what you're saying." He looked at her, steady. "You helped her." Vivian's composure cracked. "She told me to do it. She said we were protecting the family name." Gasps rippled through the room. Evelyn's mask broke. Fury flashed across her face. The gavel struck once, echoing like thunder. Justice had begun to speak. Weeks later, headlines covered every paper. Hale, matriarch, sentenced for fraud and forgery. Corporate whistleblower's death reclassified as homicide. Elara walked down the courthouse steps holding Eli's hand. Cameras clicked, but this time she didn't look away. The truth no longer frightened her. Adrian stood nearby, silent, eyes lowered. When she passed, he whispered, "Thank you for fighting when I didn't." She nodded once. The truth fought for itself. Outside, the sky was bright, the kind of light that felt like forgiveness. Eli looked up at her, smiling, unaware that the story that shaped his life had just been rewritten. She knelt beside him. "We can go home now." "Are we safe?" he asked. "Yes," she said, smiling softly. "We're finally safe." For the first time in 9 years, Elara Monroe felt free. Not from her past, but through it. A few months later, autumn came to Willow Harbor. The shop reopened, sunlight spilling through its windows. Adrian arrived one afternoon, quieter than before. "I don't expect forgiveness," he said, "but I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make it right." Eli stood nearby, clutching a book. "Are you really my dad?" he asked. Adrian's voice cracked. "Yes, and I've missed every birthday I shouldn't have." Eli stepped forward and hugged him. For a moment, time stood still. No lies, no titles, no walls. Just a father and son finding each other again. Elara watched, tears forming, but no longer from pain. The late sun poured gold through the window, wrapping them in quiet peace. For years, she had feared this moment. Now, she understood it was never about winning or losing. It was about healing. 1 year later, Phoenix blooms thrived by the sea. The scent of lavender and peonies filled the shop. Elara's hands were steady, her smile real. "Some stories don't end in romance," she said softly, arranging flowers by the window. "They end in peace." Eli ran to her, handing a handmade card. "To Mom. You're my hero." She hugged him tight, eyes glistening. "You're mine too." The doorbell chimed. Adrian stood there, holding a single pink peony. "It means apology," he said quietly. Elara smiled. "Then I accept." He knelt, embracing their son. The world outside moved on, but inside the little shop, time seemed to pause. Calm, warm, whole. Through the glass, the ocean shimmered under morning light. Justice had given her peace. Truth had given her freedom. And love, in its quietest form, had given her home. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who still believes that truth can heal.